our segment is around trauma in the physical body. So let me give you a very simple example. So 6-year-old boy riding the bicycle, little wobbly, hits a curb, falls over, breaks his arm.
Yeah.
Okay. So after, cast put on, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, cast comes off, everything's fine. In your world, is that the way you look at it?
Yeah, so what I would say is you're bringing up exactly the point where most treatment stops, because we think, okay, well, once the physical body has mended, more or less, the trauma is now complete and out of the body's repaired. Okay, so we're done. However, on frequency level, oftentimes trauma, when it happens like that, especially if it's a surprise or if it's a surprise, it can be really, it can embed into the frequency memory of the body. So it runs through you. So I'm just going to distinguish, actually, because I just realized I was being confusing. One, the frequencies running through you can cause trauma to happen. Okay? So it could be that, for example, it could be a lineage pattern where everybody on your side of the family has injury to the right side of their body, somewhere. Whether it's a right shoulder or a leg or a hip or something, there always seems to be this trauma, or there's always this like back pain thing that happens, right? Someone gets kicked by a horse, someone like pulls their back doing something or other, they rupture a disc, whatever it is, right? There's some lineage pattern that can cause a kind of trauma to happen within you. So the 6-year-old boy who fell and broke his right arm might be playing out a lineage pattern of trauma to that side of his body. The other thing that I want to distinguish from that is that when he experiences that trauma, it happens not only on the physical level, but trauma sets in on the frequency level too. Okay, so the frequency of trauma exists. And if it stays within the field of frequencies that create you, what happens is if it's not removed, it can create subsequent trauma, like over and over again to that same part of the body. So that frequency isn't pulled out, then it can reoccur. So it's like, oh, this arm is healed, but I keep re-injuring it. I keep breaking the same arm over and over. I break the wrist, or I break the hand, or I break the shoulder. Like somewhere in this area, I keep repeating that kind of trauma. Yeah. So if you don't pull it out on frequency level, whether it is the first example where it's a lineage pattern, which creates the situation where you hurt something on some part of you, or whether the trauma happens and the trauma isn't released out of the body from a frequency standpoint, then problems can recur in that same area and might just repeat themselves. So by removing it on the frequency level, however, it stops it from repeating.
Yeah, a couple kind of fascinating thoughts that I had is to do like a family tree.
Yeah.
And look at it with a subset of injuries.
Yes, or sicknesses, yeah.
Or illnesses of some sort, and just see what has filtered through over time. So, like the lower back or the shoulders or the neck or...
Yeah, or the knees or the pelvis or whatever it is. A lot of times, if you look back, you'll notice that injury recurs in lineage a lot.
So that's fascinating, and I don't think most folks have ever even thought about that. Although, as I listen to this, it's going to be like, ooh, that is in our family,
Yeah.
And so then the second part of that is that 6-year-old that fell off the bike. So to track and look at, our history as far as injuries or whatever, to see if there is a tendency to a certain area of the body that started maybe at a young age.
And just keeps happening.
And keeps happening. So that is fascinating. But now what I'd like to know is, how do I release that? Or how do I stop that pattern? Or how do I stop those frequency memories coming through?
Yeah. So really this is through frequency work, right? So this is the work that I do where we release a distortion pattern of this trauma, okay? Or of the lineage pattern. Sometimes it's more than just the lineage pattern of trauma. Sometimes it's almost, not almost, let me rephrase. Oftentimes, there are accompanying distortion patterns that bundle with that trauma. So, meaning, if you're always, for example, in the paternal line of your family, there's always injury to the pelvis and lower back, for example. There could be associated distortion patterns of non-deserving or lack of abundance or not feeling worthy of having a whole body or whatever it is. Those distortion patterns might bundle with that tendency towards physical issue on that part of the body. So you have to release the entire thing, not just like the trauma frequency, also the accompanying frequencies that often intertangle. So what I'm going to back up out of this and say is that frequencies, I often talk about them as if they're layers to an onion, because people, I think, can understand layers pretty easily. But in reality, it's more like a bowl of spaghetti. They often intertwine and intermingle with each other. So if you pull one noodle out, it catches on another noodle and all comes out in one big tangle, right? It's kind of like that. And you never know where the tangle is going to end up being, right? And what if you pull on one, what piece of noodle is going to come out? It's similar, you know? So it's not necessarily linear, exactly like layers of an onion. It's more like a bowl of spaghetti. So that's what I mean by if you pull out the trauma piece, you have to also see if there are any other like enmeshed frequencies that contribute to that thing occurring over and over again through the lineage.
But that's part of the gift that you have.
Yeah.
Because I come to you and I don't know anything about the spaghetti.
Yeah.
And so I don't see the relationship. I
Yeah.
don't see the, I don't see the lineage thing that you were talking about. I don't sense or see any of that. So, but that's where you could help me, is I don't need to know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd like to mention about frequency work is it's not necessarily direct, meaning people think, okay, when I do frequency work, the pain will stop. It can be that. It can also be that when you release the distortion patterns, the pain will be there, but then all of a sudden, someone introduces you to this new therapy that's not been tested very much, but it's really, really successful in people who are just like you. And you happen to know that this person has set up a practice just in your town, and it's really hard to get this treatment anywhere else, for example. And you go in, and that's the thing that removes the pain or the trauma. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily direct in the sense of like, frequency work, release the pain, but it can lead you to things or the opportunities or the people or the timing or the remedies or whatnot that will resolve the physical issue.